Today's question is, can a full moon affect human behavior? Now, this is a theory that I've heard many times, and there's a lot of different behaviors that people attribute to full moons. It's believed that 80% of nurses, 70% of mental health clinicians, and 50% of the general public believe that the full moon affects human behavior. And there are a lot of different areas that this belief says can be affected by a full moon, like increasing psychiatric hospital admissions, increasing crime, including violent crime, increasing the risk of unstable behavior or mood dysphoria, increasing the number of seizures that occur, and the number of traffic accidents. But is it true? Can the full moon, which is a phase of the moon, really have that kind of effect on human behavior? Well, to understand this theory, we have to understand a little bit about the moon's orbit and about gravitation. So first, with gravitation. The moon exerts gravitational force on everything else in the universe, technically, but everything else on the planet, so human beings and all the objects on the planet. The most noticeable impact of this gravitational force is the moon's effect on the oceans and other large bodies of water. We know, for instance, that the moon has an impact on tides. So the way the theory goes is that if the moon is exerting gravitational force on the oceans, which are of course mostly water, then it's exerting gravitational force on people in some special way, because human beings are mostly water, about 80% water. So could this gravitational force actually change human behavior? Well, to understand the rest of the gravitational force piece, we need to take a look at the moon's orbit and how it does or doesn't line up with the phases of the moon. A full moon, a new moon, these are phases of the moon. They don't have a relationship with the distance between the moon and the Earth. So the moon orbits the Earth in an elliptical pattern. And when the moon's closest to the Earth, that's called perigee. And when the moon's farthest away, that's called apogee. The phases of the moon, like full moon and new moon, do not correspond with the perigee or the apogee. So when the moon is exerting the most gravitational force on a person, that's not necessarily related to a phase of the moon. Another important part here is to understand how much gravitational force the moon, at any stage, perigee, apogee, or at any other stage in between, is actually exerting on a person. And to understand this, we have to understand the concept of a newton. A newton is a measure of force, and it's the amount of force required to accelerate a 1 kilogram mass 1 meter per second per second. So it's a very small amount of force. If we think about what it feels like on a person on Earth, 1 newton would be about 0.22 pounds. So very light amount of force. Now the amount of force the Earth exerts on the average human being is around 950 newtons. The amount of force that the moon exerts on a human being is about 0.004 newtons. So it's extremely small. And again, the full moon doesn't line up with the distance. It doesn't really tell us anything about the distance. So if that small amount of gravitational force could affect human behavior, which is a pretty big if, it's not tied to the phase of the moon. So to answer the question, does the full moon affect human behavior? No, it doesn't appear to affect behavior in any meaningful way.